Good afternoon, everybody. It's David Perlmutter from QuantumListing, and welcome to our webinar with our friends from biproxi. And we have as our guests today Jan Khamish and Tabitha Satterfield. Before we launch into our program, I just want to be sure to thank our wonderful sponsors, the News Funnel. The News Funnel is an excellent resource for everybody in the commercial real estate community. They provide us with a absolutely free feed of aggregated commercial real estate news from hundreds of different sources. And another great thing about the News Funnel is if you have your own website or blog, you can use their feed on your site. Also, it's a great way for you to get people to come back to your site on a regular basis so that they can stay up to date with commercial real estate news. So let's get going. So today we have Jan Khamish and Tabitha Satterfield from biproxi. Jan is a co-founder and head of partnerships for biproxi and leads the former managing director of 10X and has 26 years of commercial real estate experience. And like me, Jan is a commercial real estate broker, although I'm not sure you're practicing. I think you're too busy with biproxi these days. And Tabitha Satterfield is head of sales there. She's an 11-year commercial real estate professional, and she has focused on investment sales and property technology, and is responsible for $300 million in online sales and partnership with commercial real estate brokers in 2019. Tabitha, I hope you got a piece of that action. So thank you, guys, and we're so glad that you're here to talk to us about a more modern approach to commercial real estate marketing. And we'd love to see everything that biproxi has to offer. So I can either, do you want to take over the screen, or do you want me to just, push the slides when you're ready?
Which would you prefer? I'm happy to work the screens if Jan wants to do the talking, vice versa.
Sounds great. I just made you the presenter, so you should get a little link, I think.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Okay.
Hi, this is.
Not sure what that was. I'm not seeing the link, so maybe we'll just, it says you're presenting.
Okay.
So maybe you can just go ahead and present. We'll give you a cue to when to flip.
Good. Everybody can see?
Sure. So thanks everyone for joining today. We appreciate your time and allowing us to share our vision on how we want to approach the CRE transactional space. Taking a look at all of the different players in a commercial transaction and how can we bring efficiency to that process. And the marketing side of it is a part that sort of is antiquated, and we want to bring intelligence and data and have an approach that's going to make a very transparent and accessible process for all parties involved.
We like to kind of talk about internally that, in every other industry online, if you shop for a product or you're looking at a product, it tends to follow you. It does, real estate, on the residential side, that happens a lot. I think, we're at the infancy of that happening from a commercial standpoint. That, if you're, giving the consumer, the buyer, the buyer's agent, the tenant to window shop is coming, right? And so we're really focused on creating that experience.
Okay, we can move to the next slide.
Okay.
So the first step for us was to take a look at the transaction solutions that are accessible today and how do we modernize it. And so you have your letter of intent process that most people are familiar with when you work with a broker. And then you also have auctions, which have been online for the last 10 years. And so we're looking at both of those solutions as this is how a broker is accustomed to transacting a deal today. But how do we make it in a way that's going to expand the broker's Rolodex, bring efficiencies, and allow them to essentially close more deals quickly?
Yeah, so if you're a listing agent, primarily on the investment sales side, we're giving you the option of supercharging that process online. Marketing Concierge is a process where you transact on an asset through a standardized letter of intent process, but it's all done online. And basically what happens is it's creating a downstream funnel, putting, hypothetically, depending on the asset, retail, office, industrial, but putting 5,000 eyeballs on that deal up front. And through various ways of, internet marketing, online marketing, email campaigns, through our various partners that we have, and really casting a wide net. Then narrowing that net through the signature of confidentialities online that someone is committed to start looking at that information, the due diligence vaults and all that stuff online. And is that math 200, 300 people? Then that math also gets narrowed down by how many of those people are looking at that due diligence information. And our product will give you statistics, analytics, if you're the listing agent or the listing agent empowers the sellers, is that 30 people? Is that 40 people? The next funnel down after someone's spent 20, 30 days of marketing that asset is how many property tours are being set up. And of those property tours, how many people are interested in submitting a letter of intent? And then of those people submitting a letter of intent, how many people what are their contingencies, finance contingencies? But that number goes from 5,000 to 300 to 50 to 20 to 10. All you need is really 2 to create a market for an asset, but that's really the job of the listing broker. We're enabling a technology solution to do that online, and that's really taking the traditional process and doing that online. Auction, based on our collective experience, is really kind of running a similar process, but what it does is really hold the buyer's feet to the fire, because it forces multiple buyers to come to an auction day and really be competitive at the end. And that improves terms and pricing, in our opinion, for the seller. Auction is, over the last 10 years, has become a tool of choice online, and it really has created a certainty of close for sellers and listing agents, and for buyers agents and buyers, that once they go through the process, they won or didn't win a property. So those 2 solutions are coming online, and we're excited to really create those solutions for the agents that are out there, not just the principals.
It's very exciting.
We can go to the next slide. So this just walks you through what the process looks like. Jan's just explained that, but we have an assessment that we do on each property, understand what the broker has done historically on the asset, understanding who the most likely buyer is, and being able to generate a campaign that's going to drive leads that are meaningful to that particular asset.
I have nothing to add. Tabitha did a great job on that.
Next slide. And this just goes through the auction. It's very similar in the setup as you would with a marketing concierge deal, drive a meaningful campaign for the leads to have accessibility to the asset. But the only difference is that instead of doing the call for offers and going in and selecting one buyer, you have the opportunity to create a competitive environment where you're bringing all participants in to help drive up the value of that asset. It works really well when you're getting multiple offers in, and instead of doing multiple rounds of best and final, you're putting them into a competitive environment that has a time certainty close. And it just, I believe, has the psychology aspect to it that will help drive the value up and really benefit the client in the end. Okay, next slide. I'll let Jan talk about this. This is his sort of mad scientist approach to how we are rating our buyers.
Yeah, listen, every asset, I mean, I think what we've really spent a lot of time is understanding buyers, and no buyers are the same. Obviously, for certain product types, you need a 1031 exchange buyer. For another product type, you need a user. For another product type, you need, someone that's looking for steady cash flow, or another vulture buyers that buy distressed assets and fix them up. No, properties are snowflakes. No two properties are the same. And, part of doing an assessment, and I think everybody likes different wine, and people do preferences, and that's the same thing that we do up front. As we've developed a preference system that takes into what is the property criteria, what is the size, condition, use, whatever, who's the best type of buyer from that for that property. Is it a user? Is it an exchange buyer? Is it a vulture buyer? We build those lists. Where is it demographically? Like, is it a regional buyer? Is it a REIT? All that. And then how do we help the listing agent and his client, the seller, get the best price and terms in the quickest amount of time possible, using, and creating that funnel of 5,000, 300, 50, 20, right? And it's like, who's the real highest probability buyer for that asset? And I think, this is going to be critical in the months ahead, where you have a delta going on today. And we, David, Tabitha, and I've spoken on this. It's like, sellers today still think it's February, and buyers, depending on product type, think they should get 40% off. And then, we were on another call that not to name names, another one says someone put an article out today that assets are going to be below 70, they're going to be off 70% from their values at the high. And so, we're in for an interesting time, because, and I'll give this math, I'll leave you with this last math. In the month of April, and I don't know, retail collected about 22% of their rent. Multifamily collected 77. Office was like 27. Industrial was high. It was in the 90s, like 93 or 94. And then hospitality was a whopping 14. So, we're all going to be in a place of, when this kind of ends, is like, can't use historical comps, sales comps. You can't really do static cap rate valuation, because you don't know what cap rates are, or nor necessarily that income streams. But what you can, and this is where we're going to all go to, is discounted cash flows. So, creating a business plan for an asset. So part of our system, part of our rating system of buyers is, working through that process, creating a business plan for an asset, and then, targeting the right type of buyers for that asset.
Move into the next slide.
Yep, coming up.
This just goes on a little bit more about the whole ecosystem of the buyers, just to give a little bit more of a visual on how we're approaching the CRE investment space, and understanding that we can't just cultivate one buyer list, that we have to go after all of these parties because they are an important aspect of the CRE buyer database. Okay, John, do you want to add anything?
No, I think that's perfect.
Okay, perfect. Next slide.
So let me just ask a question. Is there like a sort of like a series of questions that, you know, a wizard type of thing that people enter to enter answers into to get to that rating?
Yeah, so we're doing some light campaigning now into understanding the acquisition goals of a buyer. We have lists from various sources that we're going out and just understanding how we can create a better online experience for them, and what tools do they need to be successful when they're transacting in a listing. With that, we are also paying attention to buyer behavior and understanding, you know, what are they looking for online? What are they typing in search fields? Can we retarget them and make sure that we are putting the right properties in front of them when they're ready to transact on a piece of real estate? We had an interesting test recently where we have a Walgreens in Connecticut that we're currently marketing. And after we did this exercise, we had a 60% click-through rate, which is really high for email campaigns. So we feel like we're on the right target with doing this sort of strategy. And then, you know, as we develop and we get our users online, we'll be able to continue to use artificial intelligence to build out our database.
Right. I mean, we have a tremendous amount of data. You know, people, the math is there's roughly 55 million commercial assets out there. Of those 55 million, roughly 10 to 12 million are improved, where they actually have a building on them. And, you know, the others are land holdings, various things, you know, oil and gas, also relevant, but irrelevant in some respects, right? So understanding within that population of 12 million or 10 to 12 million, who are the owners and how active are they, you know, yearly, because not all of them are trading on a yearly basis. A lot of those people own those assets for a long time. And what is their criteria? So we're well on our way to understanding their profiles and then matching that. You know, we laugh, it's almost like date matching, right? We're not going to say we're Match.com, but to your point, David, like we ask, you know, a bunch of questions, so maybe more like an eHarmony, where, you know, there is some criteria and there's some logic going on. You know, if you have an empty pad retail next to a Walmart, you know that your target market is developers in that region or within that 25 or 50 mile radius. So we've developed those algorithms to do that.
That's great. Should I go on to the next one?
Sure, please. Just to give you a little bit of flavor of how we approach the marketing aspects of both of our sales solutions. You know, we set up our marketing strategy. We'll put together a property display page that will allow a broker to manage his listing. In that, there will be an online war room, electronic CA. A buyer can interact with that page, download all the due diligence documents, but we're capturing all of the buyer behavior on the particular page and then putting that information in a broker dashboard where a broker can then manage and strategically interact with that buyer based on the behavior that the buyer has demonstrated on the page. We set up digital campaigns through social media and Google search, retarget marketing, and then have other campaigns through third-party relationships that we have cultivated. Email campaigns, again, going through and understanding who the most likely buyers are based on the information that we received from those buyers, and making sure that we target the buyers and let them know that we do have an asset that they would find intriguing in their acquisition goals. Okay. I think that might be the last slide. Maybe there's one more.
But wait, there's more.
Oh, okay. John, do you want to talk about the vision and the new features that are coming? You're on mute. Okay.
I think the vision is like, that we recently acquired a listing site called officespace.com. Most people kind of, it's synonymous with leasing, as far as, lots of tenants are coming to that site. We have high traffic, on the site, and there's lots of leads, and we have a product with that. But our vision at this point is really to integrate all those listings, for sale, for lease, with an overlay on top of, every single commercial asset in the country, and then having brokers have a dashboard that they could pick and choose what they need when they need it. If they need reports, valuations, they need better pictures, they need an OM, they need whatever they need, they could buy through that dashboard. They could also click on that dashboard and access an auction or access a Marketing Concierge deals, but they're actively doing, their business through an online system that's, call it CRM Lite, that has, some contact management capabilities, but all of that is interacting with their listings, and they have the ability to buy things as they need it, very much in line with the way our industry works, which is, a la carte, buy it when you need it. And we're excited to, bring that out. We've been a little bit, given what's happened in the last, couple months, we've decided to kind of refine it rather than push it out too quickly, and just also wait and see how the market recovers a little bit. So that's the strategy. I think Pam is asking a question: how long does this take to set up? It takes about less than 24 hours to set up a property, and our costs are depending on, the asset size, the asset value, what you want to do. We're happy to have a conversation. Like I mentioned, regrettably, every piece of real estate is a snowflake. Tabitha or I are more than happy to chat with you and understand your asset and figure out how we can help you with that asset.
Typically, we're paid on a success base. So, we're partnering with you and want to see you be successful and make sure that the right eyes are on that property. So that's how we've structured our fee. It's based on a success.
When you guys first launched, one of the things that I remember reading about was the biproximate value. Are you guys still touting that, or is that something that you've moved past?
Yeah, definitely. I think the bigger vision for us is to be the go-to place to be able to get all things related to an asset. So if you need comps or historical data, having a biproximate on off-market properties, all of those things will be listed on biproxi. Great.
So,
yeah, listen, I mean, and we had that, and we'll have it soon again. I mean, not to, again, there were multiple strategies around acquiring office space, and we're in the midst of integrating all that, but our industry is not without its challenges, not just on developing new products, but given how it behaves. So we've had to adjust accordingly with that behavior a little bit, right? And it's something that I think, David, you faced over the years, and we're facing. It's tough to be progressive, ingenuitive in commercial real estate.
Yeah, but you know what they say, you got to skate to where the puck is going to be on. So
Right.
too early than too late.
I like that saying. Good.
Yeah.
Good one.
I think it's attributed to Wayne Gretzky. So
Yeah, that's a great quote.
But Pam, I know you asked a question. I'm happy. I'll send my contact information. And happy to connect or discuss your asset or connect with Tabitha anytime.
So for people watching later, Jan added his phone number. Jan, do you want me to read that so people can hear what it is?
Yeah, and maybe Tabs is not Tab. Yeah, please go ahead.
So you can reach Jan at 917-293-2184. Again, that is 917-293-2184.
And then I'll just, and an easy way, actually, I'll just add my email as well, which is super easy.
That's Jan at biproxi.com. Y-A-N is Jan, and at biproxi, biproxi.com. And Tabitha, do you have, let me guess, it's Tabitha at biproxi.com?
Got it.
Woo! And Tabitha is Tabitha.
That's correct.
Okay. As opposed to, I don't know, young Tabitha from Bewitched was spelled it the same way, but loved that show growing up.
Yes, so did my mother. She was like a big fan of that show, and that's how I ended up with his name.
That is really funny. Wow. It was funny. I was talking with Julia before, and she was like, she wasn't entirely sure how to pronounce your name. Sorry, Julia. But I said, well, it's, I guess you didn't watch Bewitched as a kid. So that's how I know. So we would love more questions from those that are watching. So, please feel free to either unmute yourself or type something in the chat box. And now it's a great opportunity to get your questions answered. So, Jan,
I got a question.
When do you think that the auction module is going to be up and running?
So it's up. We have the module up. It's a little bit, if you want to bring it up online, it's biproxibid.com. So it's, if you have an auction asset, we're up and running on it, and we have multiple assets on it, and would love to work with you folks on how to help you streamline a marketing process through an auction today.
I got a question. Can you hear me, Dave?
Yourself, please.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah. This is Andrew Bermudez from Digsy, everybody.
I got a question. So I know that both Gretzky and biproxi are both 10x/auction.com alumni. And I know that Gretzky tends to tout a lot of like digital marketing stuff. And I just wanted to get crisp and clear. So like when customers ask me about biproxi or other services, we refer a lot of business to other people. We simply just don't focus on these types of things. Can one of you, either Tabitha or Jan, kind of explain to me kind of like when somebody's asking me that question, like how do I address, okay, the difference between the marketing side, the services that Gretzky provides, and biproxi?
Yeah, so I think like I know the folks the founders at Gretzky, and the way that they approached their business model was to go out and get the listings and grow their database organically. And so it's very passive marketing, where we're approaching it from the flip side of it. We're paying attention to what buyer behaviors are out there and making sure that we understand those buyers and target market to them, regardless whether they're in our database or not. We're continually looking for those buyers. So I think it's just understanding, how much effort needs to be put in behind the marketing strategy for their asset. If a broker's been out on the market already and has used digital resources like a website or something like that, and they haven't received the traction that they were looking for, and they really need someone to come in and help them and build a strong marketing campaign behind it, have a strong marketer at their side, then that's where we would be a benefit to them.
It's also maybe also like kind of this perspective. Traditional CRE marketing is kind of a shotgun approach, which is like blasting it out there to, you get the, like Tabitha said, you get the listings, you put them up and you blast it out to a population, right? To a massive population. Well, we'll do that for you too, but what we're also doing is target marketing, right? So we will build kind of on that sheet, it's like, what is your property? What are the preferences of that property? It's the same thing as, it's like dating, right? What are the preferences on dating? What are you looking for in a match? And then it's target marketing those preferences.
So you're really marrying, the people who have geographic interest in addition to asset class interest, is what it sounds.
Yeah, absolutely. Asset class, geographical interest, preferences.
And getting it down to like the stabilization of the property and cap rate, really truly understanding what is it that the buyer looks for in their acquisition.
Because if you think about it, like the only, most people stay within a certain asset class. Only vulture buyers that buy, distressed stuff and then try and rehab it will kind of change between asset classes. But for the most part, people have preferences. If, people are buying multifamily, they will tend to buy units. They're not going to deviate. They may, as they get older, buy a triple net asset, but that's a second, type of asset. They're not going to buy empty industrial warehouse. And so we've clearly defined all that.
That's really fascinating. That's a great approach. I really like that. Anybody else have questions? Because they've got answers. Do you want, I know everybody's doing work from home and school's still in session in some places. I don't know if you have the bandwidth to take us to the site now, or whether you want to pass on that.
We can maybe show you the auction site. I mean, I don't know if you want to take them to by proxy bid.
Sure, I'll click on the link here. If that's okay with you.
Yeah, why don't we show them the auction, and then we could also show them. So this is, mechanism, and you could, connect with us through this site, but these are some of the auction assets that are in play today. And then they're being, we'll announce it, but they're sitting in multiple places. Their traffic is being driven to them through various sites, through various means. All of that traffic is being pushed back to the listing agent, and it's creating that funnel, right? Tabs, I mean, if you want to add, but really, it's the same. I mean, we can show you the Marketing Concierge, but it's the same premise: is really creating that funnel, creating that good interaction with the listing agent, and ultimately, setting it up for a letter of intent that converts into a purchase sale agreement or setting it up for an auction environment.
So like the process here is a broker or an owner approaches you, says, hey, I'd like to auction this. You come to agreement on all the terms, and it looks like you have a minimum bid, there's a set date. The broker or owner is the person responsible for showing the space if it needs to be seen, providing all the documentation that goes into your vault, your document vault, right? And then auction day comes, and what happens then?
Auction day comes, multiple bidders, someone wins, and then they go non-refundable with a deposit amount within 24 hours after winning that bid. They've reviewed the purchase sale agreement, and then you're looking at a 30 to 60 day close of escrow thereafter.
I think the interesting thing about our process versus our competitors like 10X is that we don't do shelf bidding, and we will go out and market the property for 45 to 60 days, depending on the asset and the challenges that it has surrounding it. We'll do like call for offers, have the sealed bids come in, and then evaluate where the bids are coming in and set the reserve or set the opening bid around where we think the market's going to be able to bear, and then the bidders will come in. But there will never be seller bidding happening with us, where our competitors do have the sell bid.
So in my brokerage business, I participated with one of my customers in a 10X auction. I remember, come auction time, there was a end point for the auction, but to the extent that bids came in prior to that end point, the auction would be extended another few minutes. Is there a similar process here?
That's correct. And so you're allowing buyers to come in or bidders to come in and continue to bid until there's nothing left for them to come in. And I think that it helps to, one, eliminate swiping of the property, protects the integrity. It also maximizes proceeds for your client. So that's always going to be in play. But I think the most interesting, what people have challenges with, is they don't tend to trust an auction because they don't know who's bidding. But if you have a commitment that you're not bidding on behalf of the seller, then they feel a little bit more comfort in that they know that this is an actual buyer that I'm competing against, and it's my deal to lose, not games are being played here.
Yeah. This is great, and I see that you're doing land auctions in addition to buildings as well.
Yeah, land auctions are tricky unless there's high motivation with the seller, only because it's a lot harder to be able to underwrite knowing that it's a non-contingent sale. And so land auctions, if you're going to do first bid meets reserve or absolute auctions, then that's where it really fares well. Unless it's a parcel that's easily developed, then maybe it could be a little bit interesting conversation to have.
Do you ever say to prospective sellers, I'm sorry, we're not going to take on that property, or your terms aren't realistic, we don't think we can't advise you to do that, or anything like that?
Yeah, I think we're not in the business to do valuations, and certainly will rely heavily on a broker for their BOV, or broker opinion value. But we can play the bad guy in that scenario of we'll do a quick underwriting back of the envelope. This is what we think it's worth. This is what we can base off of historical sales and what we think we can accomplish. And if their goals or what they're trying to achieve with the property are just not in line with what we've seen happen online, then we would just say no to the property.
Got it.
I think particularly in the cycle we're going into, it's really important for the listing agent and for us to really be on the same page and have realistic pricing from the seller, because otherwise it's just a waste of time for everyone, right? And for agents, that's their most precious commodity.
Yeah.
Right. And what I think is interesting about this type of sales, it allows a client to be able to see what the market will bear. I mean, obviously, there's a reserve that's set up front, and if we don't hit that reserve, then we don't have a sale. But if you see, you had 4,000 people look at your asset, you converted 10 or 15 people into participate in an auction, and 5 or 6 showed up, and they start stalling out at a number, that's value. There's your market value for that asset, and you can go to sleep at night knowing that you've made a sound, intelligent decision based off of full transparency on what that asset actually is worth.
This is very exciting stuff, and I wish you well, because QuantumListing wants to partner with you in this business. So
we're excited. We're excited to do so too.
Excellent. Anybody else have questions? It seems not, but if you do want to follow up with Jan or Tabitha later, feel free to shoot them an email. And I want to thank you guys for your time and for showing us biproxi and biproxi bid. I want to also thank Julia from our team for all of her help in setting this up. And of course, I want to thank all of you nice folks that have taken time out of your day to spend with us and to learn about biproxi. So thank you, everybody. And we hope to see you again real soon. We have lots of great webinars coming up. Be sure to check out our webinar schedule in the How It Works section of QuantumListing. And we are, next week, we're actually taking a break from webinars, just 1 week though, and we'll be back and have a stellar lineup for the rest of June and July. So thanks again, everybody, and hope to see you virtually, and one day actually in person. Thanks.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, David.
Thanks for having us on, guys.